Hey there, CINEMASTER fans. Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The film Hollow Man begins in a secret laboratory with a mouse entering a room, and suddenly, an invisible gorilla lifts it up and eats it. In another place, we are introduced to a scientist named Sebastian. Sebastian is an arrogant and selfish geneticist who never takes anyone's advice. At that time, he was testing a certain experiment on his computer, but the experiment fails, which upsets him because he has been working on it for years and has lost sleep over it. Afterwards, he sees his neighbor in the apartment next door and starts spying on her until she closes the curtains. He goes back to thinking about his experiment until he finds a solution, and the experiment succeeds. He is pleased with this achievement and calls his colleague Linda. We learn that they used to be in a relationship, and Sebastian tells her that he succeeded in the experiment. She is surprised, and Sebastian tells her to bring Matthew and come to the lab to try the experiment. Linda agrees and says she will call Matthew and come over. After she ends the call, it turns out Sebastian didn't know that Matthew was actually in Linda's bed, as they are secretly in love. Linda tells him that Sebastian finally succeeded and says they should each go to the lab in their own cars so no one suspects they are together. Matthew doesn't like that their relationship is a secret and tells her that someday they must tell Sebastian. The next morning, Sebastian arrives at the lab, enters his fingerprint, and says the password. We see that there are many animals in the lab for experiments, including a huge gorilla that had been made invisible in an experiment. Matthew arrives at the lab, and they stand in front of the gorilla's cage, putting on thermal goggles to see the gorilla clearly. Matthew calms the gorilla and enters the cage to give it a sedative injection, but the gorilla bites his hand, opens the cage, and escapes. Matthew chases after it and tries to stop it but bumps into Sebastian. Matthew tells him the gorilla has become very aggressive lately, possibly because it's been invisible for a long time, which has started to affect its brain. Sebastian gives him a gun, and they both chase after the gorilla. The gorilla reaches a dead end, and Sebastian injects it with a tranquilizer, and it falls asleep. Their colleague Sarah comes in, upset with Sebastian's behavior because he treats the animals badly. She asks how he could inject the gorilla with an untested serum. Sebastian nonchalantly replies that he certainly doesn't want to kill the gorilla. Afterwards, they prepare the gorilla on the operating table to give it the serum Sebastian just made. Matthew was about to give the injection, but Sebastian selfishly takes it and says he will do it himself. Sebastian injects the gorilla, and the serum is supposed to make the gorilla visible again. Indeed, the gorilla starts to reappear. At first, everyone is happy with the serum's success, but suddenly the gorilla's heart rate rises dramatically, and it starts convulsing, possibly suffering a heart attack. They try to resuscitate the gorilla with electric shocks to restore its heart. Linda does this several times, and it works. The gorilla stabilizes, and the process of reappearing is completed. Everyone is very happy because the serum worked. Sebastian feels proud and tells Sarah, "I'm always right." They return the gorilla to its cage, and Sebastian says they will dissect it in a few days to make sure all its cells are healthy. Sarah objects to this idea and tells him he is heartless. He yells at her, saying, "I don't care about these animals." The other scientists intervene to calm things down, and they all go to a restaurant to celebrate their achievement. Sebastian tells them they are the best team of scientists in the world. Despite the success, Sebastian is preoccupied with getting back together with Linda. Linda asks him why he isn't happy, and he says that after succeeding in making the formula, this is the beginning of the end, and each of them will go their separate ways. She tells him that science has no end. But Sebastian says he wants greatness, recognition, and award. He reminisces about when they were together and happy, but she refuses and tells him she is with someone else. Refusing to say who, Sebastian gets upset and leaves, returning to the lab, where he finds his dog missing and wonders how things feel when invisible. A few days later, Sebastian's team meets with a committee of military officers who fund their projects. Sebastian tells them they managed to create a serum that makes any living creature invisible, and that this serum was easy and didn't take much effort. But the serum that makes the creature visible again was extremely difficult and took 4 years of work. Colonel Kramer asks if they succeeded in making the serum, but Sebastian says no, they haven't succeeded yet. Linda and the team are surprised by his answer because they did succeed. Sebastian tells the military leaders that they are close to success and just need more time. Kramer tells him they have given him all the resources he needs, but their patience is running out. If he doesn't finish the serum soon, they will find another scientist to continue the experiment. Afterwards, Matthew and Linda ask Sebastian why he lied to the military. Sebastian says if they told them they succeeded, the military would take all their inventions and wouldn't need them anymore, taking all the credit and achievements. He says he won't allow. They ask what he plans to do, and he says they will perform the experiment on themselves. Matthew and Linda are shocked because experimenting on humans is risky, and they don't have military approval. He says it doesn't matter, and tells them the military leaders agreed to let them experiment on humans. In the next scene, Sarah is shocked the military agreed, but Sebastian tells her he thought she'd be the happiest because this would give the animals a break. Sebastian volunteers to do the experiment on himself, saying he will remain invisible for 3 days. Sebastian prepares himself for the experiment. Matthew tries to convince him to back out, but Sebastian insists and isn't nervous at all. He lies on the operating table and injects himself with the serum. Everyone is worried something will go wrong. Several seconds pass with nothing happening, but then Sebastian starts to feel strange things happening to his body. Suddenly he starts convulsing, feeling severe pain, as if his body is being torn apart. His heartbeat is extremely fast, and his heart is about to explode. They almost use the defibrillator, but his condition stabilizes, his heart calms down, and his body starts to disappear. Over time, his body becomes more and more invisible until he is completely gone, but he loses consciousness. The scientists are happy the experiment succeeded, and Sebastian remains unconscious in the operating room bed for 17 hours. Linda and Monsieur were in the lab, and Sebastian woke up. He was very bothered by the light, so they moved it away from him. He told them, "I feel very strange, and I am invisible," and he moved among his colleagues while they couldn't see him. He dimmed the lights a bit in the room, and kept playing with them and teasing them. They were forced to wear thermal glasses, so they could see him. Linda told Sebastian that every night, someone from the team would stay with him in the lab to check on him if he needed anything, and that he would be under surveillance cameras to make sure he was okay. On the first night, Sarah was the one monitoring Sebastian. Sarah relaxed a bit and dozed off. Sebastian then opened the door, moved around and entered Sarah's room, playing with her hair. He wanted to harass her, but she sensed him, woke up, and felt that Sebastian had been there with her. When she checked the surveillance camera, she didn't see him. Seconds later, he was found back in his bed. Afterwards, Sarah told Linda and Monsieur what happened. She said, "I asked him if he got up and where he went, and he told me he was getting coffee, so I doubted myself and thought maybe I was dreaming." Linda said, "Sometimes I feel Sebastian is not polite," and Monsieur said to Sarah, "I'll ask him if he really tried to harass you," but Sarah calmed him down and told him, "It's okay, maybe nothing happened and I was just dreaming." Monsieur then attached devices to Sebastian's body to make sure he was fine and told him, "From now on, when you get out of bed, you have to tell us." Sebastian's test results came out, and his condition was very stable and normal. Sarah was worried about Sebastian as she removed the devices from him. Later, their colleague, the scientist Jenny, went to the bathroom and was surprised when she felt someone was there, even though it was empty. She put on the thermal glasses and saw that no one was there. All the scientists gathered and talked about Sebastian, worried about him and feeling he was moving around and spying on them. Jenny said, "I can't go to the bathroom anymore without the thermal glasses." They said Sebastian was a selfish and very arrogant person, and they wished the military would take the whole project away from him. It turned out Sebastian was actually sitting with them, listening to everything they said, and no one noticed him. Then it was Linda's turn to monitor Sebastian. She was staying up late, doing some experiments and drinking her beverage. Sebastian kept distracting her by moving her drink several times, then grabbed her and asked her to get close to her while he was invisible, but she refused and left him. The next day was the time for Sebastian to reappear. They prepared everything to give him the serum. Sebastian took the injection, and the serum began to spread in his body, but something strange happened. Sebastian felt suffocated and couldn't breathe. Suddenly, he became aggressive and tried to break free. His colleagues tried to restrain him, but he hit them with incredible strength and pushed them away. He returned to normal for a second, then lost consciousness. They put him on a ventilator so he could breathe, and then he disappeared again. Thus the experiment failed. At night, Sebastian woke up. Linda was sleeping next to him to check on him. She told him, "You were about to die," and asked him, "What will we tell Colonel Kramer?" He told her, "We don't have to tell him anything. We need to make some adjustments to the serum." Afterwards, they made an artificial mask for Sebastian because he would have to live among them for several days. The mask would allow them to see him. Linda made holes for the mouth and eyes, and Sebastian wore glasses so he could tolerate the light. Monsieur kept working on the serum, trying to understand what went wrong. Many days passed after they conducted more experiments on Sebastian, but he couldn't stand it and was very upset. He told them, "I was supposed to be invisible for only 3 days, but now I've been invisible for 10 days. And he shouted at Monsieur, "I can't stand your mistakes in the tests." Linda tried to comfort him, but Sebastian was bored in the lab, and was going crazy from boredom. He told his colleague Carter, who was monitoring him, "I'm going out for a walk and will be back." Carter tried to stop him, saying, "The rules say you're not allowed to leave." Sebastian told him, "I made those rules, and I've decided to change them now," then left. Carter went to inform Linda. Sebastian went, got in his car, and drove off quickly, before the security guard could see him. He arrived at his house, took some tapes and books, and then saw his neighbor, whom he used to spy on all the time. He saw her again closing the curtains in front of him. Sebastian took the opportunity, entered, and waited for her to return home. He moved the mirrors several times to scare her, then attacked and harassed her. At the same time, Linda arrived at Sebastian's house and found the door open, so she entered, and found the mask and his clothes there. Meanwhile, Sebastian noticed Linda's presence in his house. Linda decided to leave and return to the lab. She felt his presence around her before she got into the elevator, but she got in safely, and he didn't approach her. In the lab, the team was preparing to go out and look for Sebastian, because they had to find him before he was discovered, as his discovery would put the entire team in danger. Suddenly, he entered and told them, "Don't worry, no one will discover anything." I was at home, but Linda confronts him, and telling him that she was at his house and didn't find him, and that she saw him without the mask and outfit. Sebastian tells her, "I'm the project manager, and I'm free to do whatever I want. I just decided to walk around without the mask for a while." Linda threatens him and says, "If you leave the lab again, I will report you to the army commanders." Sebastian replies, "That way you'll put all of us in danger," and he leaves. Sarah talks to Linda and asks her if the army committee knows what's going on. Linda tells her the truth, that they lied to her, and Sarah is shocked. Linda asks her to calm down and not tell anyone, and then tells Matthew, "I'm afraid the serum's disappearance will affect Sebastian's mind." After that, they continue testing the serum, but unfortunately the experiment fails. Sebastian gets angry, swears at Matthew, and leaves. Linda tells him that Matthew is trying everything to bring him back to normal, but he doesn't believe her, and starts suspecting that Matthew wants to kill him. When Sebastian is alone in bed, he gets the idea to hack the surveillance camera. He makes the surveillance tape repeat several times to make it look like he's sleeping in bed, so he can move around freely. He then goes to Linda's fire escape to spy on her, and is shocked to find out she's involved with Matthew. He gets angry, breaks the window glass, and when Matthew looks out, he doesn't see anyone on the street. Back in the lab, Linda asks her colleague Frank about Sebastian. He checks the surveillance camera, and tells her that he's asleep in his place. Sebastian returns to the lab, full of anger and regret because she chose Matthew over him, and he keeps wondering what makes Matthew better than him. He decides to take revenge in his own way. Sebastian gets more annoyed by the barking dog, opens its cage, calms it down, and tells it he won't hurt it, but he tricks and kills it coldly. Later, Sarah comes to check on the animals, notices the dog is dead, suspects Sebastian, and interrogates. He tells her he was asleep all night, and doesn't know what happened to the dog. She doesn't believe him, and leaves. They check the surveillance camera, and see he was indeed asleep all night, and they can't figure out how the dog died. At home alone, Linda senses Sebastian's presence. She quickly throws a sheet in the air, which takes the shape of Sebastian's body for a moment, and then he disappears. She rushes to the lab, checks the surveillance camera, and sees him sleeping. She decides to confirm for herself, enters the room, and discovers he's not there. She realizes he tampered with the surveillance camera, and informs the whole team. The team arrives at the lab, and Linda tells them they must report everything to the army committee, and that she and Matthew will take full responsibility. It turns out Sebastian is watching them without their knowledge. Then, the two of them go to Colonel Kramer's house, and tell him everything. Sebastian was following and spying on them. Kramer gets upset, and tells them, "I trusted you. From now on, the committee and I will handle Sebastian, and you are fired, and must leave the project completely." They leave, and Kramer returns home to call the authorities, but the landline isn't working. He notices the door moving, goes out to his garden to check, and suddenly Sebastian appears from his smoke, throws him into the water, jumps in after him, and strangles him to death. Sebastian then escapes. Kramer's wife finds out what happened to her husband. The next day, Linda arrives at the lab, and Sebastian bumps into her, scaring her. She goes to meet her colleagues, and Sebastian says that a lot will happen today. Linda asks Matthew if Kramer called, but he says no. Linda decides to call him, and Kramer's wife answers, telling her that Kramer died last night. Linda and Matthew are shocked. Linda wanted to call a general in the army, but discovers the line is cut. They go to inform lab security, but when they take the elevator and say the password, they find their password isn't working. It turns out Sebastian deleted all their passwords, so that only his would work, trapping them all in the lab. They arm themselves and decide to get rid of Sebastian. Jenny separates from them to get her glasses, but Sebastian appears and kills her with a wire. The team goes to Sebastian's room, but doesn't find him. Sebastian tells them over the mic, "I won't let you hand me over to the army committee. I love the superpower I have and I won't give it up. I discovered it's a great power, and I can do a lot with it." Kramer died before he could tell the committee anything. The team realizes Jenny is missing, so they run to find her. When they don't, they put on the glasses and discover someone is in the closet, but no one knows his secret. Sarah slaps Linda because she agreed to the project from the start. Linda is silent, knowing she's wrong, and tells Matthew, "We have to kill Sebastian." They activate the motion detector to track Sebastian's movements in the lab. They manage to locate him, and Matthew and Carter go to finish him off, with Linda following to keep him updated on Sebastian's movements. Before they approach, Sebastian disappears from the device. Matthew and Carter see him standing behind the column. Matthew goes alone and shoots, but it turns out Sebastian isn't there. It was just an air vent. Sebastian is actually strangling Carter, and Matthew shoots to make him let go. Sebastian throws Carter against the iron, killing him. Matthew is shocked and informs the team. Linda warns him that Sebastian is approaching. Matthew shoots at the smoke pipes, but Sebastian moves quickly and throws him. Matthew chases Sebastian, who is heading toward the team, but the door closes in front of Matthew. Linda tells him Sebastian is still in the same room. Matthew puts on the glasses and tries to see him, but the temperature is too high to pinpoint his location easily. Linda decides to go save Matthew. Matthew says the glasses weren't working and challenges Sebastian to come kill him, trying to locate him with a fire extinguisher. He asks, "Did the serum mess up your mind, or was it the feeling of power?" Sebastian replies, "No, you're trying to steal what's mine, and I don't know why Linda loves you." Matthew says, "Because I'm not sick and arrogant like you," and tries to hit him but fails. Sebastian hits him instead. Linda arrives and drags Matthew to another room. Sarah and her colleague Frank go to Carter and find him bleeding heavily. Sarah asks Frank to stop the bleeding and goes to get blood bags for Carter, but the door suddenly closes in front of her, and she realizes Sebastian is in the room with her. A clever idea so she can know his location, and she opens all the blood bags on the ground so that if Sebastian moves, she can track his trail. But Sebastian doesn't do what she wants and doesn't move at all. She was walking away, but he stops her and hits. Sarah pours a blood bag on him and tries to kill him, but she can't. Sebastian forces her to inject herself with the sedative. Then he breaks her neck and kills her. Linda and Matthew go to Frank, take him, and move back to the lab room. They find Sarah's body in the cooling room. Frank is with them, and Sebastian comes from behind and stabs him. Then he stabs Matthew and locks Matthew and Linda in the cooling room, sealing them inside and raising the temperature to 50 below zero. Sebastian says goodbye and leaves. Linda finds that Matthew's wound is superficial and no vital organs are injured, so she puts a bandage on it to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, Sebastian puts on the mask and prepares to leave. Matthew can't tolerate the pain and extreme cold and loses conscious. Linda tries to break the lab glass, but it doesn't work. She sits on the floor, feeling hopeless, but then encourages herself because she doesn't want to die there. She manages to make a magnet from simple tools in the room, puts the magnet on the door, pulls the lock, and is able to open the door. She gets Matthew's body out of the room, gathers a lot of paper, and sets it on fire to warm Matthew's body. Meanwhile, Sebastian makes chemical bombs and blows up the lab. He prepares several bombs to explode after 5 minutes. He heads to the elevator, but before he escapes, Linda arrives and sets him on fire. She doesn't let the elevator close and keeps attacking him. Sebastian is in severe pain, takes off his mask and all his clothes, and becomes invisible again. Unfortunately, Linda's gas canister runs out, and she can't determine his location. She uses the last bit of gas and turns on the ceiling sprinklers to locate him, but he comes from behind, hits her, slams her head into a pillar, and steps on her neck to strangle and kill her. At that moment, Matthew appears and hits Sebastian on the head, thinking Sebastian is unconscious. He takes Linda, but Sebastian wakes up, grabs a metal rod, and is about to hit them, but Matthew pushes him onto the electrical box. Sebastian gets electrocuted until he loses consciousness, and the electricity makes part of his body visible. Linda and Matthew return to the lab and find that the bomb is about to explode. They run to escape, enter the elevator, then exit to the emergency stairs and start climbing. At the same time, the 5 minutes are up. The The bombs go off, and the entire lab begins to explode. The fire pushes the elevator up, but Linda and Matthew avoid the elevator. The elevator then drops down again, and luckily stops right above them. The two continue their way, but Sebastian appears, grabs Linda by the legs, and pulls her. Both of them fall onto the elevator. She tries to escape from him, but he catches her. Matthew tries to save her, but the stairs break. Linda manages to trick Sebastian, grabs the cable, disconnects the elevator, and Sebastian falls into the fire and dies. She remains hanging on the cables until she reaches Matthew. The ambulance arrives and rescues Linda and Matthew. And here we reach the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching.